Welcome in to another SEC breakdown here with me, Marquis Munson. James Hardy here with us as well. Producers here at Tide 1029 100.9, breaking down week 12 of the SEC conference. And man, it's a lot of what they call cupcake games. I hope Nick Saban doesn't hear us, because you know they got to go against Mercer this week before they go to Auburn to face the Auburn Tigers in the Iron Bowl. But they got Mercer this week, and if you want to look at those staff predictions, head on over to Tide1029.com and check out our staff predictions for the Mercer-Alabama game. But we begin with the team that Alabama will play next week, and that is the Auburn Tigers. Number 6, Auburn Tigers, as they go against the, I would say, the upset kings here in Louisiana Monroe, heading to Auburn right now. Do you see another upset from Louisiana Monroe this week?
Not after how Auburn looked last week. I mean, don't be surprised if there's at least a little bit of a letdown emotionally for Auburn. But, I mean, still, you're talking about the talent differential between an upper-tier SEC team and a mid-tier Sun Belt team. I mean, come on, the common sense comes into play here, so you got to go with Auburn.
Even though Auburn did struggle against Mercer early on in the season, I think this is a good Auburn team after coming off that win against Georgia last week. That was a good win for the Auburn Tigers. Number 6 now, setting up this big matchup in the Iron Bowl. I think Auburn blows out Louisiana Monroe with that defense, and also Jarrett Stidham with a couple passes downfield to kind of get his rhythm going before he has to go against the Alabama secondary, who will probably struggle against. So I think Jarrett Stidham will have a big game against Louisiana Monroe and Auburn. Speaking of Alabama, a team that Alabama defeated last week, and that was the Mississippi State Bulldogs. A team that gave Alabama fans a close to a heart attack there. But Mississippi State, tough game against Alabama, losing that game late in the fourth quarter. Now they got to go travel to Arkansas to face the Arkansas Razorbacks, who right now don't have an athletic director, may not have a head coach after this season. Who's going to come out of this game in Arkansas? At least we know one person's going to keep a job, and that's Dan Mullen, right?
Well, absolutely. No matter what happens the rest of the season. But at least according to Wim Sanderson, if you heard him on Inside the Locker Room earlier this week, Cole Kelly ends up starting, albeit we all know what happened with the DWI arrest recently with him. If Cole Kelly plays, according to Coach Sanderson, that is, it's an easy Mississippi State victory. But Mississippi State, I think, just has the better coaching, once again, the better direction as far as their programs for Mississippi State going up. Even though, really, they expect their big year to be next year for the Bulldogs, but they showed a lot of promise as far as Dan Mullen's program is concerned, if they are to have a big year next year. Had a good performance last week against Alabama at home, even in a loss. So I go with Mississippi State to get a big win on the road Saturday.
I'm going to agree with you, James. I'm going to go Mississippi State as well. Their offense looked dominant against this Alabama team. Just a few misplays there in that fourth quarter, and they could have been talking about a whole different team here with this Mississippi State Bulldogs team. This Arkansas team, we've seen them travel to Alabama, and they didn't look that good. They're struggling at quarterback right now. They're struggling all over the place, actually. Let me just not point out quarterback. But I think Dan Mullen and this Mississippi State team is really good this year. If Nick Fitzgerald actually stays for another year and decides to come back for a senior year, I think this Mississippi State Bulldogs team can compete in the SEC West next year. So I'm going to go Mississippi State Bulldogs in this one. Now, another Bulldogs team that lost last weekend was the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, Georgia lost that tough game against Auburn, letting Kerryon Johnson just carry the ball downfield all throughout that game. 167 yards for Kerryon Johnson of Auburn. Now, they got to go against a Kentucky team they have been looking good quietly in the SEC East.
Mark Stimp's done a really solid job making Kentucky, at least this year, once again, will be have already, in fact, qualified for a bowl game. Had one of their best games of the season last week and a win at Vanderbilt. And this is kind of one of those games for Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs that if they don't come emotionally ready to play, they could have a tough time. And I could see Kentucky being very much competitive into the fourth quarter, but I'd still see, though, with an SEC championship game berth on the line for Georgia, and really maybe even a New Year's Six bowl game, and possibly still, depending how the rest of the teams in the top 6 or 7 in the college football playoff rankings fared the last couple of weeks, that Georgia still may have an outside shot of kind of backing their way in to that college football playoff discussion. This is an important game for Georgia, and for that reason, they're going to come out victorious.
Yeah, I think Nick Chubbs has a big game against this Kentucky team. I think Georgia plays really good at home, and that's one thing I won't take away from them. When they're in Athens, they play extremely well. I think if that Auburn game was in Athens, I think it would have been a whole different environment there. But I'm going to go with the Georgia Bulldogs in this one. They're going to run away with the SEC East, and they're going to probably get either a rematch against Auburn or they're going to go against Alabama. So I'm going to go Georgia Bulldogs. We got a battle in South Carolina, James. Let's talk about this battle here in South Carolina with these two teams. South Carolina going against Wofford.
Yeah, the Wofford Terriers out of the SoCon. Ranked number 7 this week in a couple of both of the major FCS polls. In fact, I believe they still run that triple option offense over at Wofford University. And I tell you, this is. I still expect South Carolina to win this game.
I mean,
don't get me wrong, but I can expect it to be once again one of those competitive games for 2.5, 3 quarters. One of those type of games too for South Carolina that just on the name brand alone, with Wofford playing in the SoCon, that you would overlook, especially with Clemson coming up for South Carolina next week. So I expect Wofford to give a competitive effort, but fall short in Columbia against the Gamecocks.
Yeah, Wofford is actually number 1 in the Southern Conference right now at 9-1. And I'm going to go with the other team in South Carolina. I'm going to go with the South Carolina Gamecocks in this one. Not my upset of the week, James, which we'll be talking about that next. But I'm going to go with the South Carolina Gamecocks in this one. Now we have UAB traveling to Gainesville, Florida against the Florida Gators. Now Florida, ever since Jim McElwain has been gone and Randy Shannon has stepped in, they've struggled on offense. You know, they haven't figured out who they want at quarterback, whether it's Felipe Franks or whether it's Malik Zaire. Malik Zaire is getting the call. He's going against a UAB team who looks really good under Bill Clark.
I tell you, Bill Clark's one of those names at the mid-major level that you really need to keep an eye out on, because give him a couple of more years this season. Give him some credit as well for this is the first year for UAB to come back from a 2-year hiatus as a program. They're already bowl eligible, and Florida actually will only have 11 regular season games total, because remember back in September the Northern Colorado game was canceled. So Florida, even if they win out, will not be eligible for a bowl. So UAB still, at least with an SEC opponent and a name brand in Florida to try and upset on the road, has something to play for. Florida really doesn't. I think UAB is right. It may take the final minutes to determine this game, but I do think Florida will just pull it out.
Not so fast, James. Okay, I was going to hit you with the college game day there. I'm actually going to go upset here. I'm going to go UAB. UAB's been looking great this season. Spencer Brown's having an amazing season, over 1,000 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns this season so far. I'm going to go with UAB with the upset. This Florida team, ever since Jim McElwain has left, has just been terrible. And I think this would be a big win, especially to show the programs that, hey, UAB football is back. And pay more attention to our program here at UAB, because we're going to do some great things in here. UAB, the second, third best team in Alabama right now. I will say that. Troy also having a good season as well.
Oh, absolutely. And pay attention to Bill Clark in a couple of years, maybe even this year, as far as some of those coaches you'll hear. I guess what would, in baseball terms, be the hot stove league, as far as maybe a future coaching destination for Bill Clark.
Speaking of coaching destinations and a team looking for one, that is the Tennessee Volunteers. Now, the Tennessee Volunteers fired Butch Jones earlier in the week. Now they're going with, oh my God, I can't even believe this guy's still coaching. Brady Hoke.
Brady Hoke.
Brady Hoke is going to be coaching a college football game. Do not be alarmed, ladies and gentlemen. But he will be going against the number 20 ranked team in college football playoff rankings, and that is the LSU Tigers. James, even though LSU is traveling to Tennessee land there with Brady Hoke as the head coach, I can't stop laughing. I'm sorry.
He's an assistant life champion.
He's an assistant life champion. Who do you got coming out of this game?
I like Ed Orgeron's Hummer to go up there, take the LSU Tigers up to Neyland Stadium in Knoxville, and at least get some momentum late in the season going for them. They had a nice win at LSU last week at home against the Arkansas Razorbacks. I just see Darius Geis running all over a porous Tennessee defense and being able to get a double-digit victory up in Knoxville.
Yeah, it's been a bad week for Knoxville fans, and I saw a video of a guy singing a guitar, singing to John Gruden, and hopefully he comes to Tennessee. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. We'll see some interest. Hey, John Gruden said never say never.
That's right.
I'm going to say never in this game because it's going to be never-ending for this LSU offense. Darius Geis is going to run all through this Tennessee defense. I'm going to go with the LSU Tigers in this one. Texas A&M traveling to Ole Miss there. Ole Miss, they had their coaching woes way before the season started, and now Matt Luke is in here. He's kind of on the hot seat as well in his first year with Tennessee, or with Ole Miss. So who do you got, James? Two coaches on the hot seat, Texas A&M, Ole Miss.
I don't know if I'd consider Matt Luke really on the hot seat just because really he has nothing to lose being an interim coach. In fact, the next 2 weeks, if Ole Miss can pull out the next two games, Matt Luke may have a shot at least, even if it's a small shot, at getting the interim tag removed and having the permanent tag applied. And I don't see how Kevin Sumlin returns for 2018, at least at this point, at Texas A&M. So I think Matt Luke has a lot to play for to get his team up and ready to go on Saturday at home in Oxford against the Aggies. And so I'm going with the Rebels of Ole Miss to pull out a W.
Yeah, this is pretty much a job interview for Matt Luke, and this is a job, I would say, you're looking at Kevin Sumlin's resume again and kind of reviewing what his whole career has been at Texas A&M. So it's going to be a tough game, but I'm actually going to go Texas A&M on the road. I think this team has played hard for Kevin Sumlin. Despite, you saw the game with Alabama when they had a close one, and despite them losing to College Station a week after that with South Carolina, I think this team is playing hard for Kevin Sumlin. Kellen Mott is a good quarterback. So I'm going to go Texas A&M traveling to Ole Miss and getting the victory. Finally, speaking of traveling, Missouri has been looking pretty good. I did say they were one of the worst teams in the SEC, but I guess I got to moonwalk Michael Jackson my way out of that one because they're looking pretty good as of recent weeks, and they're going against a bad team in Vanderbilt.
Well, Barry Odom certainly is moonwalking his way into another season as the head coach of the Missouri Tigers, and they're going to tap dance their way this week against a, let's say, lifeless Vanderbilt squad that's still looking for their first SEC win. And Vanderbilt, I believe, needs this game if they want to have any shot at a bowl game. But if Missouri wins, they're going bowling. And they are going to go bowling because they're going to get a win at home, or actually on the road, rather, at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, this is one of those games to where they should have never said Alabama, you're next. Because I don't know if you've noticed this, James, but every time a team says Alabama's next, like you saw with Penn State, they wanted Bama. And then guess what happened next week against Ohio State? They lost. So every time someone says they want Bama, they seem to lose. And that's not me being, just a Bama fan and just like, hey, we're dominant like that. But it's true. You say Alabama's next, usually your season doesn't pan out well, and the Vanderbilt season has not panned out well. Missouri's playing good under Drew Lock. Drew Lock's having a good season so far. I'm going to go with the Missouri Tigers in this one. And remember, head on over to Tide1029.com for the staff predictions for Mercer and Alabama, but you probably can figure out what the prediction actually is for that game. Iron Bowl week is next week. We'll probably do this video a little earlier in the week because, it's Thanksgiving week, and I know you guys don't want to watch this on Thursday. Unless you want to look at our pretty faces on it while you're eating your Thanksgiving dinner, that's fine with me. So be it. But thank you guys for tuning in to Week 12 of SEC predictions here. For James Hardy of Tide 1029, Marquis Munson here. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next week for Week 13, Rivalry Week. The biggest week of college football, where we have the Iron Bowl, Alabama, and Auburn. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on that YouTube channel, and we'll see you next week.